Welcome everybody to Talk to 'em Tuesday. That's what it is. That's what it is. We are rolling into the second week of training camp. The Eagles opened training camp last Tuesday. So after 1 week, we got a lot to talk about. A lot to talk about around the league. But I'm going to be taking you guys' questions today. We'll be talking about what's going on with the Eagles, how you guys, feel about the Eagles. What's going on with multiple teams around the NFL. Let's start with, the injury bug. As we all know, we've got a first-round draft pick riding on one Carson James Wentz, who after 1 week of practice is already headed under the knife. He's got a foot injury, and, for a second, I think he believed that he could rehab it and come back. But after further evaluation, the Colts are making the decision to shut him down. And I believe he had surgery just yesterday or today. To make matters even that much worse, it seems as though the starting center for the Indianapolis Colts, Quentin Nelson, all-pro center, suffered the same injury. And he's under the same auspices. He is pretty much going under the knife. He's going to be out 5 to 12 weeks. Never wish anything negative or bad on anyone, but this is huge because of what it means, how that second-round draft pick translates into a first-round draft pick if Carson plays, 70 to 75% of the plays. If he can come back, healthy within, 5 to 8 weeks, seems like it's still doable, but I don't see it. I really don't see it. I think that, when you're talking about the foot, you got to be really careful with it. Both him and the starting center. And I expect for both of them to be closer to the 12-week mark than to the 5-week mark. That's a big downer for us. Another major injury, not really major, but, the Dallas Cowboys are downplaying it. Dak Prescott, has got a shoulder strain. I just read that the Cowboys are thinking about holding him out of the Hall of Fame game. What does that do to their adjustment and their growth, their, continuity? It just goes on and on. Joe Judge went ballistic yesterday. You're going to have these dust-ups and you're going to have these scrums in training camp, especially after you get through the first couple of practices, you throw the pads on. The ego swells up, pride, swells up, and, you're going to have some of these. But the problem is you got your starting quarterback in Daniel Jones that finds himself in the melee. He's got to be smarter, not to get caught up in it. I understand that those are his teammates and everybody's competing and he wants to be a part of what's going on. But if the quarterback is the most important player on the field, and you understand that, what are you doing getting in that melee? Another interesting scenario, Matthew Stafford. A lot's expected of him. The LA Rams gave up a lot to get him and trading Jared Goff and multiple draft picks. He's got a thumb issue right now. So what does that do to the Los Angeles Rams and their progression? Deshaun Watson, I don't know how much of this is really them just not wanting him on the field or him not wanting to be on the field or, it really truly being an injury. I find it hard to believe that that's the case, but he's got some kind of nagging injury that's got him sidelined. And then the Vikings, goodness. I mean, the Vikings have all three of their quarterbacks, Kirk Cousins, Kellen Mond, and Nate Staley, all three in the COVID protocol. So I don't even know how they're even running practices and how long that's going to be. I want to hear you guys' opinion on Devonta Smith because he's down with a MCL sprain. The Eagles are saying 2 weeks. And I know that I saw on social media there was a couple of people that was like, see, this is what we said. But, football is football. You're going to have injuries. Guys get hurt. I don't think the fact that, he's as small as he is has so much to do with it because when you looked at the injury, it was one of those situations where he was just running and he just tweaked it. It wasn't like he got hit or he got jarred or anything. Just a freak thing. But you guys can chime in with your questions. We will We will get through them all. I'm going to scroll back up to the top of the page and see. David Crane starts it off today. Rumor is Mailata is outplaying Dillard. Do the Eagles begin to shop Dillard? I don't think anybody in their right football mind, David, expects for this to be much of a competition. Jordan Mailata is just a bigger man, a more athletic man, a more aggressive man than Andre Dillard. And you guys remember I earmarked this competition as one of the biggest because you got a guy that was drafted in the first round, competing against a guy who was drafted as a project in the 7th round, going into his 4th or 5th year. And if he wins the job outright, he's in position to be paid like a franchise left tackle. That being said, to your point, what do you do with Andre Dillard? Because with the game film that's out there, what are you going to get for Andre Dillard in this circumstance, in this situation? The Eagles really wanted Andre Dillard to come in here and seize this job. They wanted him to take the bull by the horn. But when I hear he's whining and crying and bitching and moaning, instead of just fighting. And if that's who he is, that's who he is. I mean, there's no getting around it. So what do? Does he remain the backup? I mean, could you possibly keep a backup first rounder on your roster who's going into his 3rd year, and have his backup be the preeminent left tackle? Can you do that, or do you have to move on from this guy? I'm of the opinion you move on because you either have the dog in you either have that animal instinct in you, or you don't. And I think we've all seen enough of Andre Dillard and heard enough about his whining and bitching and moaning to understand that, he's just not going to be the type of player that we need in Philadelphia. He can talk about not listening to the media and staying off of social media and, all the other things that go along with trying to focus your brain in and make sure, you're doing everything that you can to get better. But the truth of the matter is, he's too big of a piece for Philadelphia to let that sleeping dog lie. And if he, quite frankly, when Jordan Mailata beats him out, there is no other recourse but for the Philadelphia Eagles to move him. And they may have to give him away for little or nothing, to be honest with you. Okay. Let's see, Victor Parker. Looking like Mailata's, he's going to start there, Victor. Hey, Victor, you want to know who the guest is? You the guest. Start firing them questions, man. All right. Julie Herzog. She says, wow, the center two, wish them both a speedy recovery. You must be referring to Carson Wentz and Quentin Nelson. I was going to try to touch on this a little later on, but I might as well, since Julie brought it up. I think it's time for the NFL to begin to take a look at the construction of the shoe that NFL players play in today. I think players forever have always wanted lighter shoes. And when you look at the way shoes are constructed today, not necessarily for defensive and offensive linemen, it's different. The wide receivers, the cornerbacks, sometimes the linebackers, wide receivers, running backs, they like these light shoes that allow them, to move and be quick on their feet. But these shoes are single mold, meaning that you've got the mold of the shoe is one solid plate. It's not like, you have the toe of the shoe that actually bends like this, and then the back of the shoe, is solid. You have just one mold, one solid piece, and then you put, whatever kind of material it is that you put up on top of the shoe that's extremely lightweight. Now, if your feet are extremely strong, then you can move and bend a single mold shoe. If your foot's not that strong, then you've got problems. When you're talking about a single mold shoe, okay, and I step into the ground that shoe sometimes is not going to bend the way that a double mole shoe would necessarily bend. That causes problems not only from the standpoint of your foot getting stuck in the ground and your shoe not bending and giving, but an injury situation as well. Now, these shoe companies, they're doing everything that these players are asking for because that's what they want. They would rather have the lighter shoe. But I think the NFL over time is going to have to take a hard look at these single mole shoes and understand that the foot is not anatomically made for a single mole shoe unless you're just walking around in a single mole shoe, not for playing sports. You can't get up on your toes. Change of direction is difficult. And I've seen a lot of foot injuries over the last couple of years, in my opinion, based upon these single mole shoes. So I guess, over time, we'll kind of figure out, they'll begin to look at it and understand. I mean, how is it that the center and the starting quarterback for the same team have the same injury days apart? A lot of that makes no sense to me. Something's out of balance and something's wrong. Let's see, what else do we have here? David, I'm gonna give you one more. You said you want to know how much does Devonta Smith injury affect Hurts. I think that even though Devonta Smith is a rookie, I just believe, that he is so technically and fundamentally sound that 2 weeks off isn't going to hurt him a whole lot. Now, you want these guys to be on the same page as much as you can because they're going to be starting quarterback one and starting wide receiver one, at least for this year. If not, hopefully way beyond that. But, these injuries occur, and it's crazy how they happen. I was actually watching the play when Devonta actually tweaked his knee, and nobody was even around him. But that's just the nature of the game. You hope that whatever's going on with these guys, they heal up quickly. We can get them back on the field and getting these two guys working together. There's a lot of good things going on. If you listen to what it is that Nick Sirianni is saying, and we've got a lot of good stuff to look forward to. All right. This is my partner right here, man. I haven't seen or talked to you in a while, man. I got to make it a point, Terron, to have you come on. Terron used to be a writer for the Eagles, and he has moved on up. He's with the Tennessee Titans right now. He says, I was talking with Coach Mack about you today. He said you were one of the smartest players he ever coached. You talking about Coach McGinnis? Oh, okay. Well, listen, Terron, I had a lot of great, defensive coaches throughout my career that contributed to, my knowledge of the game and what I was able to, put out, on the field. When you come in and Wade Phillips is your linebacker coach for your first 2 years, and he's the guy that's drilling you day in and day out and day in and day out, because it's not like today where, you had OTAs, you came in for 3 or 4 days at a time. No. Our off season started February 28th, and we worked every single day from February 28th to the coaches went on vacation in June. So Monday through Friday, from 9 a.m. to about 2:30, 3 o'clock every day, we were working and grooming and grinding on our skill set. And that, to me, that just made me a better football player. I'm just like all the other players, today's players. Nobody wants to be stuck, in Philadelphia when it's cold and, when they can be in the Bahamas somewhere. But the truth of the matter is, if this is your job and this is your passion and this is what you worked your entire life to become a professional football player, at least that first year is critical, because that's the time where you learn the most about your defense and where it becomes second nature. And not only what it is that you're supposed to do, but also figuring out, what everybody else is supposed to do. To Mac's point, it wasn't enough for me to just know what my job was. If there was a blitz, I need to know where it was coming from, who was blitzing, who are we turning loose if we were turning someone loose? Where was the strength and the weakness in the defense? Could I take an opportunity to take a chance to make a play, or did I need to really, really play it by the letter? That, to me, that's the difference between, a player who really, really wants to be great and a player who just, hey, I'm here, I'm playing, I'm doing my job, and, I'm hoping to get paid. But then, you talk about, Buddy Ryan, and then Bud Carson, and then, Fritz Shermer. These names are just legendary names in the defensive world of football. Jeff Fisher, after Wade Phillips left, became our defensive coordinator and linebackers coach. So a lot of the skill sets of being able to cover guys man to man and footwork and things like that, I had the opportunity to learn those things, from a guy like Jeff. But yeah, I mean, it's a different day, Terron. And I would love to see these guys become more students of the game, because as complicated as, we've tried to make the NFL look, they're really just, they're doing things that we were doing back in our day, and the rules have given them free reign to do it a certain way. There's a way to defense those things. There's a way to take those things away. There's a way to prepare yourself for what's coming rather than, being dictated to. But I just, there are some guys that want to be great, that are committed to, doing whatever is necessary to anticipating what's going on. And there's certain guys that say, I'm on this ride for 5 to 6 years, and I'm trying to, bank as much cash as I can, and I'm riding off in the sunset. That guy doesn't love the game, doesn't love it. My friend, I will be in contact with you because I got to get you on here and spit some of your football knowledge with some of the fans. Let's see. Miss 35 wants to know, why does the media hate Jalen? They don't give him a chance. Well, I don't know if that's necessarily the truth. I believe that there are some guys in the media that see the upside for Jalen, but also looked at a small sample size of 4 games last year being thrown in under the fire with not much to work with, and seeing, some progress, and then also seeing, some things that kind of make you scratch your head. I was listening to a piece this morning that Donovan McNabb was talking about being patient with the young quarterback, and he was asked, what was his advice to Jalen, and Donovan said, hey, go out and play for yourself, and do what you got to do. Well, I think, and I understand, where Donovan comes from, because, in a lot of ways he's jaded. When you're picked the number 1 overall and the whole audience boos you, and you go through a period of time where you're not wanted. Some people don't have the mental fortitude and the mental wherewithal to be able to deal with that and move on from it. I just believe that, when you're the quarterback, your role is so much bigger than just going out and doing your thing and taking care of you. You're everything to everybody. And in order for the team to be successful, you have to be that way. For Jalen, I think that he is that way. I think what the media does is they listen to, the things that he says and the rhetoric that he spews, and they look at him as Nick Sabanisms, and they look at him as things that, Nick has kind of drilled into him. But when you really stop and you look at him and you observe who and what he is, there's nothing that comes out of his mouth that isn't consistent with who he is. And I think that the one thing that Donovan and I agree with is that I believe that the things that he's been through, makes him much more mentally prepared and mentally sharp to deal with Philadelphia than many quarterbacks, could ever deal with. all that he went through, at Alabama and with Tua, and then, being, you know, entering the transfer portal, and then, within 1 year, Lincoln Riley completely, excavating and changing, who he was as a passer, to being drafted in the second round, and all the hoopla that went on around, him being drafted so early, and, the Carson Wentz lovers that, that were upset about it. And, he just went on about his business and did what he had to do. I think that, he's psychologically, mentally, and fortitude wise, I think he's built for Philly, and at the end of the day, if things don't work out, then they don't work out. But the thing I respect the fact that Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie are going to give this kid a chance this year to prove his worth. That's, as a player, that's all you can ask for. That's all you can ask for. He didn't ask for the hand that was dealt to him because he didn't draft himself to the Philadelphia Eagles. He didn't cause any kind of dissension between himself and Carson Wentz or anyone else on the football team. He is just, a victim of circumstance, and finds himself in a situation where he has a golden opportunity to take the bull by the horns and be a starter in the NFL. And I wish him all the luck. But to your point, I think that, there are a lot of people that want to see him fail. There's a lot of media people that want to see him fail. They do not want to see him succeed. They want this egg to be all over Howie Roseman's face, whether that's, to run him out of town or to just be able to point the finger and say, you screwed up when you picked him in the second round last year. I don't know what it is, but my thing is Carson wanted out. They, abided by his wishes and got him out. He's no longer a Philadelphia Eagle. Now Jalen Hurts is the guy. He's got 1 year to get it together. He's the guy that's wearing, the Eagles green. So why aren't we, media, fans, and everyone else, trying to get behind this young kid and give him positive energy rather than negative energy? I don't get it either. But I'm not going to be, and you guys know me, I'm not going to be that guy that's going to be, a homer, because contrary to what most people believe, everybody thinks that, I hated Carson Wentz. That's not the truth. If you went back and you looked at all the great plays and the great games that he has, I was always balanced and unbiased in my opinion of Carson Wentz. When he did great things, I gave him props and credit. When he played horribly, he deserved the criticism that comes along with playing bad as a player. I know I've been there before. Okay. I know what it is to win a game for my team. I know what it is to lose a game for my team, over a boneheaded play. But at the end of the day, the media is going to have an opinion one way or another about Jalen Hurts and what they think that he can be and what they can believe he can be. I think it's our job to lift him up and hope that, he can be everything that the organization hopes that he can be. And if he can't, then guess what? You got options, as far as draft stock is concerned. You're going to have cap space next year. There's more. You're probably going to have even more cap space at the end of next year because some of these older guys are going to fall off the salary cap as well. So the Eagles are going to be in a situation where you can get well quicker. And I think that the move for Jalen Hurts was, okay, if Carson Wentz doesn't work out, at least we got another quarterback under a rookie contract for at least another 5 years. That gives us an opportunity to build. If this guy's the guy, good. If not, by the time we get to where we need to be, we're going to have enough draft capital and cap space to be able to say, okay, what guy do we want to target, whether it be the draft or whether it be in free agency via a massive trade, because we have the assets to now do it. But the proper thing, in my opinion, is to try to figure out right now, okay, what is Jalen Hurts going to be? How good can he be? All right. Let's see. Interesting. Adam says that Matt Rule cut TJ Eby for headhunting in practice. Well, I hope the Eagles go and sign him. I mean, there's one thing It's one thing that, being aggressive, another thing to be overly aggressive. I'd much rather have a player that's overly aggressive that I've got to kind of back him down a little bit than to have a player that I've got to cattle prod in the hitting. So I don't know. I don't know the particulars of it. I don't know how ugly it looked, how severe it actually was. It must have been, pretty bad for him to cut the kid. Or maybe he's just sending a message to the team to take care of each other. But I think at the other end of the spectrum, I want guys that are aggressive. There's a way to be aggressive, and be extremely physical without, costing the team and, taking money out of your own pocket. But over time, the game is changing. The game is changing dramatically. And I feel for that kid. But trust me, it won't be long before somebody picks him up. All right. Victor Parker. Josh Sweat going to be our stud. You know what, man? Josh started making some great strides last year. And I'm going to tell you the truth, though. The thing that worries me the most about Josh is his knee. Now, I haven't had the opportunity to be at practice, to be able to see, what he's looking like in the next week or two. I'll be back in Philly, where I can actually get out to a practice and see what everybody looks like and see, what kind of defense, they look like they're going to run. We'll kind of touch on some of that later on, to kind of get an upfront look at some of these players that are new to the Philadelphia Eagles. But if his knee is 100%, and he's a beast, man. I mean, he's long, he's strong. But the problem is that, he with his knee being the way that it's been for the last 2 years, unless he's gotten it 100% right, you can't get any more than like 30 to 35% of the plays out of him. So you got to be really selective. And that's problematic, for a team, that has a guy like, Derek Barnett, who's starting in front of him, that's on a contract year. You got a guy like, Kerrigan, who is in the same situation that that Josh is in. Well, he was in that position last year when Ron Rivera said, "Hey, we don't expect a whole lot out of Kerrigan. We're looking for 30 to 35% of the plays. I don't think that's going to change that much for him here, especially with the Eagles are going to want Derek Barnett to show and prove. Brandon Graham is locked in. Brandon is the type of guy that you can move all over the place in your NASCAR package. What do you do with Brandon, at different times? So it'll be interesting to see. But like I said, my biggest concern right now with Josh Sweat is that knee, and whether it's 100% healthy or not. Well, Andy wants to know, what are you hearing about special teams? There was such a huge part of Andy's success here. Last few years, special teams have been average at best. I agree. Like I said, Anthony, I haven't been to practice yet, so I can't tell you what they look like offensively, defensively, or special teams wise. In the next couple of weeks, I'll be in Philly, with my notepad, taking notes on, what they look like and what their schemes are and what it is that they're going to do. There's an overhaul going on. When you listen to Gannon and him talk about what they want to be and what they want to look like on the defensive side of the ball, that they looked at the game film over the last couple of years and realized that they were not aggressive enough. They were aggressive from an analytical standpoint, but from the standpoint of, making things happen, changing the dynamic of the game, those plays weren't there. They were lackluster in the turnover area over the last 3 years. And really the only way that you're able to, change those dynamics is you have to bring a little more pressure. Now you've got Steven Nelson at one corner, you've got Darius Slay at another corner, Avonte Maddox now, in the slot. There's going to be massive competition, at the safety position for that guy that steps down into the box for the two guys that are going to be playing two high safety and single high safety behind. So hopefully that competition breeds a situation where, you get the best players, the best three safeties in that scenario, in that situation. Because listen, the strength of the team, no doubt, is going to be the defensive line. But I'm not a firm believer that you can live by the four-man rush all the time and get home. Every once in a while, you've got to bring that linebacker. You got to bring, that guy off the slot, or you got to walk that linebacker up on the tight end and bring him off the edge. You got to do some things different. And, from what I'm hearing from Jonathan Gannon, there's going to be some changes. But special teams wise, I can't imagine us not being as aggressive. I don't think that that's going to change. I think that, the mindset of data analytics and what it says percentage wise, as far as, if you convert or you stop the other team in a situation and what that looks like as far as the winning percentage is going up or going down, I don't think that's going to stop. That's just where we are in the NFL right now, especially, with this team and this organization. They are driven 100%, in my opinion, by data analytics. All right. Let's see. All right. Miss 35 says we need a veteran wide receiver. The injury doesn't run from anyone. And can Jordan hold up in pass protection? I like Okun if available. No. I think that the Eagles are in a situation right now where we're looking for growth. And when you're trying to grow, you don't stunt or arrest the young players' ability to get better and grow by bringing in veterans. We saw that with Travis Fulgham last year, having a heck of a year, and all of a sudden Alshon Jeffrey is well enough to play, and because of the money that the Eagles are paying him, they make a decision to, back off of Travis and bring and have Alshon Jeffrey play. Massive mistake, because this kid was, his trajectory was, was still riding pretty high. There's no reason, with a few games left, to throw Alshon Jeffrey back in the mix. As far as Jordan Mailata is concerned, listen, I don't think you don't stunt his growth by bringing in another veteran that's going to create competition. If you believe that he's the guy, then you let him continue to develop. That was another situation last year. I thought that the Eagles made a massive mistake when Jason Peters, came back from injuries for the umpteenth time, and Jordan Mailata was playing well, and they sat him and then they moved him over to the right side. It made no sense whatsoever. You knew that Jason Peters had played his last bit of football in Philadelphia. There was no reason for you to put him in the game. You owed him nothing. Absolutely nothing. I mean, he held you hostage from guard to tackle, and you acquiesced and gave in to him. Then you turned around and got injured time and time again. And then you turn around, that kind of loyalty. I mean, what did Jason Peters have on, the organization? There's no reason in the world why, Jordan Mailata should not have stayed at left tackle, no matter what the circumstances were. It's time for Howie Roseman and Doug Peterson and John and Stoutland, everybody to just say, hey, you know what, big guy, we appreciate your service. We appreciate everything you gave us, but it's time to move on. Have a seat over here next to us. We're going to let this young boy, have the rest of the rest of it the rest of the way. That's the way you do it, and the Eagles are in a situation where they're rebuilding. If you're going to be rebuilding, then allow your young players to play and get experience. That experience is invaluable, especially in a situation like last year when you had no preseason games for these young guys. All right. Michael McClain, who will be our second or third tight end? Listen, right now you got Zach Ertz, you got Dallas Goedert, and you got Richard Rodgers. I think that's a pretty good tandem. I don't think that we ought to be really necessarily looking at, trying to move Zach Ertz. I think he's motivated, to be better than he was last year. I'm not 100% sold on Dallas Goedert as a starter. His demands for what he wants contractually, really kind of rubbed me the wrong way. You've never been a starter. You've never been a Pro Bowler. You never had 1,000-yard receiving. You've never had double-digit touchdowns, yet you want to be paid like the top 3 to 5 tight ends in the game. Come on, man. Pump your brakes. Pump your brakes. Do something first. Do something, okay? Become that guy that's unstoppable. Become a Kerry Kittles when he's healthy. Become a Jason Kelsey, a Travis Kelsey, when he's healthy. Become, a Zach Ertz of 2 years ago, and put up numbers like that, and then we can talk about all of that. But I think the Eagles actually sit pretty darn good as far as tight ends are concerned. I think they just need to, just quiet down all this conversation about moving Zach Ertz anyway, because you're not going to get what you want for him. And if that's the case, you might as well keep him and get another great year out of him before, you move on next year. All right. Let's see. Jonathan Kaufman wants to know, do you think Howie will use the new $14 million in cap space to bring in another player this season? If so, what position do you think needs the most attention? That's an interesting conversation to be had right there, Jonathan, because I tell you what, a couple of weeks ago, I was looking at all the veterans that were out there that were still available. There's a lot of good football players that are out there waiting in the wings for either a young guy to prove that he's not that guy, or waiting for, someone invariably to get injured. A lot of great players out there, a lot of good players. So I think the smart thing for the Eagles to do is just whole serve. I mean, there's no rush, no need to hurry up and do anything. Let's, get through training camp. We got preseason game coming up, next Thursday. Let's see what these young guys look like. Unfortunately, these coaches don't like to play the veterans at all during preseason, but I think, the Eagles in a unique situation where I would love to see them, get the starters out there and get, with Jalen and the starters on defense and get them, some reps, allow them to, get their feet wet. Injuries are going to happen. You can't do anything about it. What's the difference? I've always said, what's the difference between, saving a guy from preseason and then the first regular season game, he gets hurt and he's out 5 to 6 weeks, If you're trying to build camaraderie and cohesiveness, then you're almost in a situation where you got to play your players in preseason game. Now, whether that's just a series or 2 series or whatever it is, for a new head coach, I need to see what my guys do under fire. I want to see how everybody meshes and works together. How does my offensive line mesh and work together? I know it's a veteran line with great leadership on it, but I haven't had those guys together, on a consistent basis over the last 2 years. And now I got a young quarterback, who needs to build some camaraderie with these guys. They need to play. They need to play. If they're healthy, they need to play. If they're not healthy, that's a whole different ball of wax. But if they're healthy, they need to get out there with Jalen and this young, group of skilled position players, and they need to, get their feet wet and get their mouth wet a little bit. Same thing on the defensive side of the ball. All right. Victor Parker wants to know, how am I feeling about Davion Taylor at starting linebacker? Well, I don't know yet. I haven't seen him play, to be honest with you. I'm imagining that he's in that position because Alex Singleton, I believe he's either hurt or in the COVID protocols or something, like one or the other. But he's in that position. Hopefully, both of these young linebackers will come in and compete their behind off. I told you guys last year when the Eagles drafted Sean Bradley, I was extremely high on him. And I'm hoping that, somehow, some way, he gets out of his own way and can realize the true potential that he has. His problem is just, his mouth. His mouth gets in the way sometimes because, He's full of bravado, which is a good thing, but sometimes you got to know when to just chill. And sometimes, that can rub certain coaches the wrong way. But I love his confidence. I told him, when I coached him in the Senior Bowl, I was like, the only hindrance to you being a great football player in the NFL will be your own mouth. If you learn how to just be quiet and let your play speak for you, then you're going to be just fine. Davion Taylor, listen, he's a 3rd round draft pick. The Eagles want to see what they have in him. They want him on the field as a 3rd round linebacker. They want him on the field somehow, some way. So the heat's going to be on Alex Smith whenever it is that he comes back, or over time. If Davion isn't really living up to the billing, then you have to go back to Alex Smith, Alex Singleton, I should say. I apologize, but listen, the Eagles, in my opinion, are in a better situation defensively as far as linebackers are concerned, and they've been in quite some time. I've been hearing some good things about TJ Edwards, although in my opinion, he's more of a run stopper and he's a liability in the pass game. But that doesn't mean that, he can't work on his skill sets and become, a much more balanced football player. But the great thing about having so much competition and being in competition around, all the other linebackers is the knowledge that, hey, if I out-compete all the other guys, then, I'm going to get the starting job or significant playing time, so on and so forth. So we'll see. We'll see, how Mr. Taylor evolves. All right. BJ wants to know, do I have any insights on what defense we look like? Well, to be honest with you, I don't. I've been trying to delve into John Gannon's, head all I could through everything that he says. It looks to me like they're going to be a multiple defense. He hadn't really come out and said, and let's be honest. In today's NFL, there is no more 3-4, 4-3 defense. Okay. Teams come out in 3 wide receivers probably 75 to 80% of the time. And if that's the case, then more times than not, they're dictating to the defense what type of personnel you're in. So that means you're going to be in a 4-down lineman, 2 linebacker set. They go 5 wides, or you got a tight end that can be flexed and moved. That creates even that much more stress. So then you go to nickel, you go to dime, and you take another linebacker out of the game because you have that sub package to take care of that. So I don't really care, what we want to say the defense looks like or what the defense is going to be. Everyone's concerned, they're going to be a 3-4 defense. They're going to be a 4-3 defense. No, depending on how multiple they can be, they can morph back and forth between a 30 front and a 40 front. Listen, if they want to go prevent, you can take an offensive line, you can take a defensive lineman out and just rush 3 and add another guy into the drop. If you just want to go 4-man, you put your 4 best pass rushers in the game and let them go with games and stunts and everything else to go along with it. If you got a good pass rushing linebacker like a Steven Nelson, then what you do is, you incorporate him into a 5-man blitz package that allows, you to get one-on-ones across the board, because now I'm either going to walk him down into the line of scrimmage and show color and force either a guard or a tackle to respect the fact that I'm there. There's just so many different things that you can do and so many different ways defensively you can attack, teams nowadays. It's just about how aggressive you really want to be, and, Gannon's talked about, controlled mayhem, keeping offenses off balance. See, I love those types of things because it's one thing, It's one thing to have an offense that's dictating to you personnel wise what you can and what you can't do. It's really an awesome thing for a defensive team and a defensive coaching staff to be able to dictate to offenses, what you can and what you can't do. Okay. Because if you want to remove the tight end out of the box, okay, and you basically going to look like 4 wide receivers, well, I can scheme a way to make sure that I get a guy like Fletcher Cox a one-on-one, that I can ensure that, we're not going to slide to the left side to try to make sure that we get Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham taken care of. Okay. I'll just kick my backside tackle down into a head up position on the center, and then walk my best pass rushing linebacker up, on the right side. That forces everybody to block man to man across the board. And if you don't, I've got even more ways to create situations. Even if you want to slide and get the linebacker to step up and pick up, the back, if you got, your wide receiver nasty or close to the box, I can bring a guy off the edge because you got to slide all the way to the left and then the back stepping down to pick up your linebacker. So there's no one left to pick him up. So now the quarterback's got one read, one decision right now, and he better make the right decision or he's on his behind. So there's a myriad of different ways where, you can be dominant as a defense. You just got to have the cojones to actually do it. And I think that what Gannon has done is looked at all the film from the last, 3-4 years of this defense. And I believe that he realizes that, we haven't been quite aggressive enough on the defensive side of the ball. There is a time to bend but don't break. But there is also a time to force the issue and put some pressure on quarterbacks and make them make quick decisions and hope that they make some mistakes. All right. Let's see what else we got. Oh, I just jumped. Bear with me. All right, Len. Len says no wide 9. I agree. Listen, there's nothing wrong with the wide 9 when you got a predictable passing situation, but to actually live in a wide 9, on first and second down, I'm not a big fan of that. I'm not a big fan of just, being vanilla on first down either. I love the control mayhem, keeping the offense off balance. I also love the fact that, you can get after a team on first down. A lot of teams like to run on first down, run your run blitz on first down and create a second and long situation where you almost force them, to throw the ball on second down because they cannot run it again and get a half a yard in a cloud of dust. So you can kind of, if you will, you can figure out a way to force offensive coordinators' hands, but if you're not aggressive enough, then, guys just get to a point where, the offense is telling you what they're going to do and they're not going to change. Okay. This is what we're coming with. And okay, if you come out with 12 personnel, you're going to go nickel. Okay. Go nickel. That means that one of your linebackers and your 2 linebackers have got to cover, a tight end and a back, so if I can create the mismatch that I want, I can get the mismatch that I like on the offensive side of the ball. Sometimes, your linebackers, they just have to man up. I can remember playing against, the Washington football team back in the day, and, they came out with 3 wide receivers in the game, and, to the strong side, they had a tight end, a wide receiver in the slot, and a Z receiver outside. Well, if you run the numbers, linebackers are responsible for, the 3 inside guys in man coverage, so the weak side linebacker had the back on the weak side. The middle linebacker had the tight end. He had to slide over. And then I had to go out and line up on Art Monk and cover him in the slot man to man. I can remember going to the sideline. I'm like, Coach, They're in 3 wide receivers. He's like, so get your ass out there and jam and run with them. That's just the way that it was, and that's what I did. There were times where, he won some battles, but there were some times where I basically took him out of the route at the line of scrimmage. But you have to have, from a coaching standpoint, the cojones to do that sometimes and say, you know what, hey, if they get a first down, good, but I got confidence in this guy that he can still get the job done, because a lot of times back then you just, you could put your hands on the guy and reroute him. And because routes are based upon timing, you're in a situation where if I can hold him off, and have him at 5 yards of depth when he's supposed to be at 7 yards of depth, now the quarterback has to come off of him as his first read because he doesn't have time to wait for him to come free if I'm doing a good job of covering him. So it's just, how is it that you want to dictate to an offense what it is that, you want them to do? Because the way the game is set up now, they're basically dictating to the defense, what basically, what personnel groupings you're going to be in, what type of defense you're running. They're dictating whether you can actually be in man or zone. They're dictating, whether you can actually bring pressure or not. And from a defensive perspective, you got to figure out, okay, how can I flip that? How can I change that? All right. Let's see. All right. Mr. T12 wants to know Zach McPherson, rookie cornerback, is getting a lot of praise. Hopefully he'll be ready next year to take over the opposite of Slay as our future long-term corner. Well, that's interesting. I don't know. I haven't seen enough of him to believe that by next year he'll be ready for that. I think that what I do know is that he's somewhat of a hitter, and that's a good thing because he's a guy that could be that utility player that I think that every defense in the NFL now needs. You need a guy like Malcolm Jenkins, what he used to mean to the Philadelphia Eagles, a guy who could play in the hole, a guy who could play too high safety, a guy who could, drop down in the box and play the run, a guy who could line up, on a secondary slot guy and cover him man to man, a guy that you can walk down in the box and bring him on a blitz. I mean, he's like a utility knife in that he can do a lot of different things. I'd like to see what he brings and, how he plays, because the film that I have seen on him, he's a hitter. He's a hitter. And if that's the case, they may have that missing piece that they're actually looking for. And listen, they're going to have plenty of money next year. We've had a cornerback problem forever. And if you got a guy like Darius Slay and Nelson, why would you want to upset that, in the least little bit? Sign Nelson to a long-term deal, see what you get out of Slay this year. If he isn't much better this year than he was last year, you cut him and bite the bullet, and maybe you give this kid, Zach McPherson, an opportunity to win the job next year. But I think it's too early to really tell, what that's going to look like at this point in time. All right. You guys are a trip, man. Oh my gosh. Come on, Lem. Lem wants to know who is the toughest tight end for me to cover one-on-one. That was Jay Novacek. No doubt about it. Yeah, listen, Jay Novacek was more like a wide receiver playing tight end. In the running game, I just beat him like a wardrobe. But in the passing game, good gosh, he was a handful. He was a handful. I mean, our battles probably went 50-50 as far as, who won, in the pass game, but, in the run game, just straight dominance. I beat him like he stole something. But he's a heck of a route runner. and with great hands. Great stem at the top of his route, which you don't see a lot of out of tight ends or wide receivers today, but, he was a beast. All right. Let's see what else we got. Reports that say the defensive line is looking good, right? And this is more of an issue. Huh. See, you're trying to think. You're trying to think logically, Adam. The reports say that the defensive line is looking really good in camp. Could this be more of an issue with the offensive line? Well, it all depends on, who's going against who and whether they got pads on or not. If I'm if you're going ones on ones, and the defensive line is dominating, then that's a problem. If you're going ones against twos on both sides, then it's understandable that the defensive line is going to dominate because you're going against the number 2 offensive line. I would imagine that that's probably, what it looks like more than anything else. Is it the twos against the ones and ones against twos? Once you get a little scrimmage coming up here, shortly, probably at the end of this week, leading into, the first preseason game next week, you'll probably see some ones against ones, but, you probably won't get any more than, 5 to 10 plays of that. But listen, I think the offensive line is going to be fine. The biggest problem is, can they stay healthy? The defensive line, listen, they should be good. They should be good. You got veterans across the board, Brandon, Hargrave, Fletcher Cox, Derek Barnett's going in the year 5, Josh Sweat's going in the year 3 or 4, Kerrigan, is the elder statesman of the defensive line. Heck yeah. They should be dominant. But like I said, it all depends on, who's playing against who. If the ones are playing against the ones and the offensive line is being dominated, then that could be problematic. If it's ones against twos, then, you kind of, as a coaching staff, you would expect that to be the deal. But that doesn't mean that, those number 2s aren't going to come out and still, fight and show what it is that they can do. All right. Let's see. What you talking about here, Lawrence? Maybe the layoff between the mini camps and the start of training camps contributing to these injuries. These players have to make a decision. Do they want to excel at their craft, or do they want to hide behind the NFLPA and barely work? Now, that's interesting. Listen, the players have always been in a situation where they want less work. You have to go back and realize the training camp that I went through my rookie year to understand why players feel the way that they feel. There needs to be balance. And I think in the name of trying to find balance, the NFL and the NFLPA has gone too far to the other side. Okay. When you have a coaching staff that's going to make you go out and practice 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the afternoon, full pass, full go, practice hitting, well, you know what? There was a reason why. As much as I love Buddy Ryan, there was a reason why we always started 1-3, 2-4, 2-5. Because we were so beat up coming out of training camp, we had nothing left at the beginning of the season. When I went and played for the Denver Broncos and I went and played for, the Green Bay Packers, that whole mentality of how you practice in the West Coast teams was completely different. I go in there, I'm hitting everything that's moving. And Mike Holmgren was like, hey, we don't do that here. This is the way, we're going to take care of each other. We're going to show that, you're in position to make the play and, just tag him off and let him go, but because you had coaches with that bring them lunch pail type mentality, you had guys that were, players that realized, I know for myself that I left probably 2 or 3 years, in training camp, because we were so beat up by the time we left training camp, we just didn't have anything left. How many more seasons could I have played if I would have played under the auspices of, the Green Bay Packers or the Denver Broncos and West Coast offense, or the San Francisco 49ers and Joe Walsh. So I understand why it is, the players, want to have more time off and they want to protect their bodies. But football is a game of doing. Football is a game of fight. Football is a game of, it's a physical game. And the only way that you get good at it, that you get great at it, is that you hit, is that you block, is that you shed blocks, that you tackle, all of those things that are necessary. But we're in a different space now because, when the NFL loses a lawsuit for $760 million, and then the judge in the case turns around and says, hey, that's not enough, $1.3 billion. Well, that has reverberations, from the pro level all the way down to the youth level. So there's been an overcorrection, in my opinion, that's made the game softer, that's given the offense the pure advantage, and it's really changed the game that we all love. Listen, it is what it is. You can either turn it off and not watch it, which we're not going to do, or we can just live with the fact that this is the new normal, for lack of a better word or a better phrase. But the players really need to understand, if they could understand what 3 or 4 months of an off season would mean to their development, especially the young guys. The older guys, by the time you get to year 3, 4, 5, come on. If you haven't figured out what it is you're supposed to do and how to become a pro, you're probably an idiot already. And, it's your days in the NFL are numbered. Okay. But for those guys who really need to understand how to be a pro and how to work and what to do and what not to do, where to go, where not to go, all of those things, they need that first off season of being able to come in every day and work on their body and get their pro body, to come in every single day and watch film and see what they did right and what they did wrong over a 16-game schedule, and to make the adjustments. So everything when they step on the field the following year is pretty much a situation where it's just second nature. You're not thinking about it. You're just doing it. And even at that, I did that my rookie year. It still took me another year before I fully grasped everything that Buddy Ryan was trying to do from a defensive perspective, and understood not only what my job was, but, what all 4 down linemen were, what the other 3 linebackers were doing, and what the other 4 secondary guys were doing in every package, whether we're talking about the 4-3 or we morphed to a 3-4, or we were in a 46 or over or under or swim, or whether we were in blitz or whether we were in zone blitz or whatever it was. It takes that kind of time and it takes that kind of effort if you're going to be great, to learn what everybody does. And that's how you produce great defenses, in my opinion. All right, guys, that's it for today. I will be back next week. Next week, I'll have a guest for you guys. But listen, I love having the conversations and answering your questions. As always, like I always say, take care of each other and be good to each other. But most importantly, make sure you love each other. We'll be back. We'll preview the first preseason game coming up. Hopefully, we'll get some good news on Devonta Smith. I would love to see him, in 1 or 2 of these preseason games, him and Jalen Hurts doing their work. All right. Make sure you love each other. Take care. I'll see you next week. Peace.